Hey Debbie, hey Peter. We just wanted to provide a team daily warm-up for you guys to follow on a consistent basis. If there's any point in time where you don't have the full 30 minutes, please just choose an exercise that resonates best with you, and you can segment those into 5, 15, or 20 minutes, or whatever fits into your schedule. This is going to be a full body approach, focusing primarily on our hips, spine, and our shoulders. And then we'll also be sitting over that program for you to follow, so that way we have some resistance training to help make a more well-rounded approach to your wellness training. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and start with is going to be that segmental log rolling. That's just where we're going to lay prone on our stomach here, and we're going to focus on the upper extremities, and then we'll move into the lower extremity from there. So for this, we're just going to lay down towards our stomach. We're going to imagine from our hips down, we're completely paralyzed. We have no support. You're going to take your hands out into a Y. And from here, you're going to take, we'll start with our left hand, so we're all rolling in the same direction. Our left hand up towards the ceiling. Again, imagine we have no support for our lower extremities. Eyes follow. Continue to open up. And you're going to find a point in time where you feel sticky and you almost need support from that lower body. And just allow gravity to help pull you deeper. Take a nice big inhale. Exhale, see if you can rotate a little bit further. And just continue that process until you eventually end up flopping over on towards your stomach. Once you are there, if your feet ended up crossed, feel free to untangle yourself. As then now you're going to take your opposing hand, so our right hand is going to come up and across. Continue to reach. Find a nice big inhale. See if you can get it low enough to the floor, start to graze the grass, reaching across. That slow leg is going to pull you from your now back to your stomach. And we're just going to repeat going the other direction. So now we'll start with that right hand, nice big exhale coming up towards the ceiling, moving just to those upper extremities. Exhale, pull you a little bit deeper to that position. And now we'll take that left hand up and across. Exhale, reach. Not letting your hips come into play. Get the hands to make contact with the ground. You can use your fingertips to crawl. We eventually end up back on our stomach. As now we're going to transition to that lower extremity. So now we're just going to flip, imagining from our hips up, we are completely paralyzed, have no support, just our lower extremities are doing the movement. So we'll start with our head facing down. You're going to take your left leg up towards the ceiling, make that little scorpion tail, kick that leg over, let the heel come in contact with the ground, and start to drag that foot away from you diagonally, opening up to the hips and those lower segmental spine muscles. Drag the foot until it continues to open up, and we finish on our back. Reposition if you need to. As now we'll take that right leg up towards the ceiling, kick over. Let your foot come in contact with the ground, and then push that heel away from you. Slowly moving, one segment at a time, going from our back to the stomach once again. We're just going to repeat that process coming back. We're now going to go ahead and take that right leg up, scorpion tail, kick over, let it make contact with the ground, push that heel away, opening up to the hips, finishing on the stomach, resetting, taking the opposing leg, in this case our left leg up towards the ceiling, kicking it over, and then dragging that foot across. Nice and slow, trying to find any support from our upper body. Once you've done this segmental log roll of our upper and lower extremities, we're going to go ahead and meet into our 90-90 position. So that's just where we're going to find that 90-degree bend in that front leg, 90 in the back. We could even use our mat here as a good reference point, using your knee to make sure it's a nice vertical femur. And then perpendicular to that area is going to be our ankle. Same thing with that back leg there. We're going to start by finding ourselves into a little bit more of an anterior pelvic position. So one hand's going to come onto the inside of that thigh, one onto the outside. You're going to briefly bring your hips up off the ground, try to roll that pelvis forward, shoot your tailbone behind you, and then reposition our hips down. So it's almost that tipping bird position coming forward. If my right leg's forward, I'm then going to take my right elbow to be parallel with that femur. I'll take my free hand, in this case my left hand, on top of that knee, help lock in that hip, as I'm going to use my back foot, lift up that back knee as high as I can, create as much space. And then I'm going to come back down, put the knee into the ground, lift the ankle up as high as I can, and just coming back and forth, creating this axial rotation of that hip for internal and external rotation. So we're going to spend 8 reps on this side before we transition to 8 more on the next. With every rep, try to push the envelope, creating a little bit more space between you and the earth itself. Always work through these at your own speed. Make sure we take it nice and slow, not rushing through the reps. Think about actively challenging those in ranges of motion of the joints. Once you have finished 8 reps on one side, you'll just reposition, find yourself into that 90-90 with the opposing leg forward. Make sure we start that slight anterior pelvic tilt. So once we have that 90-90 set up, one hand onto the inside of the thigh, one onto the outside. Use your palms to slightly press in, roll that pelvis forward, shoot your tailbone behind you. Take your elbow to be parallel with that femur. Free hand is just going to help push that knee down, lock in that side of the hip. So we once again swivel the toes up towards the ceiling, bring that knee up towards the sky, and then coming back down, lifting the ankle up high as we can as we try to roll that hip towards the earth to increase the internal rotation. Once you have finished 8 with this new side, we'll bring our torso back up, maintain that 90-90. Taking both hands to the back side of our hip, help keep that torso nice and tall. We're almost reintroducing that external lift off on that back leg. So now you're going to lift that back knee as far as you can, maintain that space as now our right leg's into the leading leg. Let the left leg slowly follow through, create as much space between the knees as possible. As we switch from one side, let that right knee touch first, left leg follows. And we're just going to go back. So we're just finding that switching pattern, continuing to find that in range. As we'll do 8 in each direction. Perfectly fine. You start to notice your hips scooting forward. If you feel strong in this position, you want to add a little bit more challenge, you can always take your hands away, lift up that back knee, let the other leg follow through. Maybe you'll pause in the middle and then finish that switch from there. Otherwise, maintain the hand back towards the hip. The challenge, opening up those hips a little bit more, is completely fine. To the best of our ability, we're going to try to keep our sternum facing that same direction throughout that entire rep. When you've concluded 8 in each direction, we'll transition into that quadruped position. We can use that little foam pad for a little bit more comfort with your knees. So if you don't have anything near you at home, a towel or just a mat or plush carpet will do just fine. But we're going to take the knees underneath the hips and the palms underneath our shoulders, mimicking that little tabletop position. As now we're going to go through a little bit of extension and flexion of that spine. So we're going to start with a nice big inhale, pushing the floor away. Try to take the wrinkles out of that shirt. Then as you exhale, think about moving through the tailbone first, adding wrinkles into the shirt like a nice smooth wave crashing the shoreline. Individualizing each segment at a time. Arms stay long. Exhale, gaze the eyes comes forward, looking up. Then inhale, tucking the chin towards the chest. And start to take the wrinkles away from the shoulders, slowly one vertebra at a time, down to that tailbone. And tucking in. Back and forth here, taking it nice and slow. And aligning the breath with the movement. So very similar to our typical cat-cow, just be a little bit more intentional about slowing it down, moving each vertebrae individually with one another. Let's get about 6 here. Once you finish that 6th one, we'll find that neutral spine where it kind of sits in between. If you need to shake out those wrists, feel free to do so. But otherwise, we'll maintain that quadruped position. As now we're going to focus more on our scaps, so those shoulder blade muscles. So we're going to think about, in this position, drawing the sternum towards the ground, squeezing the shoulder blades together. From there, try to pull those shoulder blades down towards your pocket. As we're then going to go ahead and push the floor away. Let them roll forward towards shoulders towards our ear. Then coming back down to that squeeze. Then going in that reverse direction from those ears. All the way back and down towards the pocket. Nice smooth circles just occurring through the shoulder blade itself. As those shoulder joints, that glenoid arch humor joint, is going to stay in a rather fixed position. Do 4 clockwise and then 4 counterclockwise. Try to avoid creating any corners. Nice smooth circular rotations as our shoulders start in that depressed, retracted position. Elevate, push the floor away, get some protraction, and then back to that depression, and then into retraction once again. Once you have finished 4 in one direction, just go 4 in counterclockwise direction. When you have finished each of those, no rush, you can then maintain this quadruped position, or if you want to get a little bit of a lumbar lock, you can take your knees out towards the edge of the mat, sit your glute in towards your heel. One hand's actively going to stay pressing in towards the earth. The other hand's going to come behind the head. Nice big inhale as you bring that elbow towards the floor. Other arm stays in that fixed position. Exhale, rotate up towards the ceiling, eyes follow. Inhale, coming back in. Now getting some thoracic rotation involved, that mid-back. 8 each side here. Inhale, coming down. Exhale, rotating up towards the ceiling, eyes follow. Once you have the 8 completed on one side, the one hand that was once behind the head is actually going to press into the ground. Try to spread those 5 fingers out as wide as you can, almost as if the roots connecting in towards the earth. Opposing hand behind the head, inhale, coming down. Exhale, rotating up towards the ceiling, eyes follow. Once you have finished 8 there, last thing we're going to do on the ground is going to be that abductor rock. So we'll meet back into a quadruped position. We'll start by just taking our right leg off to the side, so you can get the arch of the foot to be perpendicular to the knee. If you would like, you can have a foam pad underneath that knee if you would prefer. We'll start with our big toes pushing in towards the ground. Maintain that nice neutral spine. As you're going to exhale, sit your glute in towards your heel, rocking back, feeling that shift in the inner groin there. Then shifting our body weight back forward, shoulders over the wrist. So we'll stay here for 8 on each side. If you want to get a little bit of a deeper stretch, you can do so by walking your hands out slightly in front of you. Start to drop the belt buckle towards the floor. Taking a nice little squeeze in that glute. Think about rolling that pelvis underneath like a scared dog tucking its tail between its legs. And then walking our hands back as we sit back from there. Additionally, if you feel like if you'd like a deeper stretch from this position, you can take that shoelace, in our case, our left leg flat into the ground, into more plantar flexion, allowing you to rock back a little bit further into that adductor stretch. And walking your hands forward, tucking the pelvis underneath, chest stays forward, squeeze that glutes, and back from there. To the best of our ability, the legs up off towards our side, keeping it nice and straight like a train track. And if you included 8 on one side, you'll just transition to 8 more on the next. Starting with that quadruped once again, sweep that leg off to the side so you get the arch of the foot perpendicular to that knee. Shoelaces either can be flat to the ground or big toe digging down, whatever feels best for you. Exhale as we rock back, spin glute to heel. Then shifting our body weight forward, using those hands to walk forward if you would like. Take the belt buckle underneath, squeeze that glute, and draw the belt buckle towards the floor. And reset. We have concluded 8 on both sides. Then find ourselves into a standing position from here. Corbin will take us through the next 2 series.
So getting into our triplanar reach series, we want to work through sagittal, transverse, and frontal plane. We're doing 3 reaches in each plane, and we're going to do a series of changing our hip position through these 3 reaches. So starting with our feet underneath us, toes facing straight ahead, that sagittal plane reach is going to be straight up towards the ceiling. Reach those hands back behind you, push your belt buckle forward, and then exhale as we reach our hips backward, hands down, touch the ground, touch our toes as far as we can, big hamstring stretch. Inhale back on the way up, and then exhale in that second wrap on the way down. 3 reps here to get ourselves rolling. And then getting into our transverse plane reach next, we're taking our right hand and reaching across to our left. Eyes can follow our hands, our shoulders are going to turn, our hips can turn as well. And then we take that left hand and reach across to the right. Same thing there. Eyes follow our hands. Get a nice big exhale on that reach. Inhale as we come back across through center, and exhale on that reach out the other side. 3 to the right, 3 to the left. Then for our frontal plane reach, we're going right hand over top of the head. We push our hips out to the right side. Feel those edges of our feet. Try to get as big of a lean over the top as you can. And then left hand over to the right, shifting our weight in the edges of our feet that opposite direction. 3 each direction here as well. Exhale into the stretch. Inhale as we pass back through center. We keep those same 3 reaches where you continue to do 3 reps. We're just going to orient our hips differently here. So we turn our toes in towards the middle, internally rotating at the hips. We go back to our sagittal plane reach. Big inhale as we reach up towards the sky, try to push those hips forward, and then reach the hips back as we reach our hands back to the floor. 3 reps here. Then we'll get into that transverse plane reach, reaching across. Try to get those hips to turn. That internally rotates on the side we're going into. So as we reach that right hand to the left, we are internally rotating at the hip. Just already in that internally rotated position. So this one might not feel like we get as much turn as when we had our feet facing straight ahead. And then reaching that hand over the top, try to shift into that hip as much as you can, opposite direction from the reach. From there, changing our hip orientation again, we'll just pivot on those heels so our toes face out. Now we've externally rotated the hips, reaching straight back up towards the sky, and hips back, reaching down towards the floor. 3 more reps here. And then 3 reaches across. And coming back over the top. From there, we will narrow out our stance, go feet together, and starting back with that first reach up and down. Then going and reaching across. And coming back over the top of that frontal plane reach, 3 each side. From there, we'll take our feet. If we're using a yoga mat, we'll step off to the sides of that yoga mat so our feet are a little bit wider than our hips. Reaching back over the top. And then as we reach down here, try to get a little bit more hip flexion by reaching those hands back behind us, trying to get all the way down to our mat. 3 times up and down. And as we get into the transverse and frontal plane here, this wider base is going to lock our hips in a little bit more, so we might notice less reach as we come across. And then same thing as we get into this frontal plane reach. Our hips are probably going to move just a little bit less. Try to keep those knees unlocked and shift into those edges of our feet, even if it's not as much as some of the reaches we've done previously. And to finish up our reach series here, we'll go into split stance. We want to think a heel to toe stance, but like we're on railroad tracks, not a balance beam, and we're nice and heavy in this front foot. For our sagittal plane reach, we reach up towards the sky, and as we come down, we want to turn and reach towards that back foot and get a little bit of rotation through the pelvis as well. 3 times up and down. And Then on that transverse reach, notice how it feels different through the hips depending on which leg's in front and which leg's in back. And then same thing as we come up over the top for that frontal plane reach. And then to finish, we simply switch the front foot, keep that nice narrow base, but railroad tracks on a balance beam for stability. We come back up towards the ceiling and back down, reaching towards that back foot. And then last 3 reaches, turning the shoulders and reaching that right hand across to the left, and then the left hand across to the right. And then finishing with those last 3 frontal plane reaches over the top. Once we've finished our triplanar reach series, getting into a little bit of a world's greatest stretch, we'll take our right foot forward and take a big step back towards the edge of our mat with that left foot. We'll take both hands down to the mat inside of that right foot and try to keep that back leg long enough off the floor. From here, we'll take that right elbow, drop it down to that right ankle. We take that right hand, turn right hand towards the sky so our chest faces that right leg. From here, our right hand is going to come down outside of that right foot, and we push our hips up towards the sky, get a good hamstring stretch on that right leg. We reposition that right arm inside of the knee, drop that elbow right back down to the ankle. Big exhale as we turn and rotate chest towards the knee that's up. Hand back down outside of the foot, push those hips up towards the sky. We'll get one more round here with this right leg in front, elbow to instep, turn and rotate. Hand back down outside of the foot, and push those hips up towards the sky. Once we reposition that right hand in front or inside of that right leg, we'll just take that right leg back so we're in a push-up position. From here, we want to try to take a big step with that left leg up outside of the left hand. From there, we'll repeat 3 reps on this side, left elbow to left ankle, turn and rotate so our chest faces that left knee, hand down outside of the foot, and push those hips up towards the sky. Three reps on this side. Once we finish that 3rd rep, we'll come back to the standing position. And finishing up our daily warm-up with a little bit more stability work, going through an inverted hamstring, taking our hands out to the side. We're standing on our right leg. We reach that left leg back behind us so that we hinge on that right hip. Try to get a nice straight line from that left shoulder to our left ankle, and then push our belt buckle back forward and come back up nice and tall. See if we can string together 5 reps here on one leg without letting that left leg tap the floor. We should get a good hamstring stretch at the bottom. Think about using that stretch to pull our hips back forward as we come up out of that inverted hamstring position. After that 5th rep, we shake it out and switch legs. And that concludes our daily warm-up. We appreciated you guys being here for the amount of time that you were here for. Hopefully this is helpful, and there's a lot more strength work and conditioning and power work to come. Thank you guys. Appreciate you checking in.